Isabelle Lewis was the grandchild of former slaves of the Creek Indian Nation, but through the Treaty of 1866 inherited 160 acres of land. When oil was discovered on Lewis's land in 1906, she instantly became one of the richest children in the country at just 6 years old. Unlike Sarah Rector, another black girl that inherited oil-rich land, Lewis wasn't protected by the NAACP and national black leaders. As a result, while Rector was able to keep most of the money owed to her, Lewis fought being under the control of multiple white guardians, each of whom stood accused of siphoning money from her estate. Lewis fought for nearly 30 years to gain control of her own finances, which were worth only a fraction of the original estate estimated by the time she was 25. This is the story of her fight against racism, sexism, ageism, and guardianship in Jim Crow, Oklahoma.
I was born April 27, 1900 to Tilda Lewis, and my father, he wasn't around. My mom was the daughter of Hannah Grayson and James Lewis. My grandmother, Hannah, was the daughter of Polly Johnson and John Killaby, a full-blooded Creek Indian. After her relationship with James Lewis, she became the wife of Pompey Grayson, making my mother his stepdaughter and me his step-granddaughter. A few months after my birth, Tilda applied for a land allotment for me as the descendant of Africans enslaved by Creek, giving me control of 80 acres of land. My mother signed over power of attorney to my step-grandfather, Pompey Grayson, who was initially my guardian beginning of 1901. On the same day he received power of attorney, Granddad applied for additional land for me, and by 1902, I was in possession of 160 acres in Glenpool area. In this same area, several other black Oklahomans became wealthy essentially overnight, as land owned by children like Sarah Rector and others like Edith Dorrant also made them targets for scams, false marriages, and even death. Acting on my behalf, my grandfather signed the initial deal for oil to be dug by Robert Oglesby in 1905, entitling me to 10% of the crude oil found on my property and $150 per each gas producing well annually, along with any building improvements made on the land. Estimates placed the value of my land as high as $237,000 per year for me, making me one of the wealthiest children in the world at the time. I don't think white folks took too kindly to my granddad being in control of so much money, cause he was removed as guardian in February 1908, less than 2 years after they first found oil. He was replaced by a white man, Henry B. Nelson. This was a common practice, as all means necessary was employed to try to take control of black-held oil-rich lands from those black hands. This results in guardianship control. White men attempted to marry black female landowners and even murdering land-owning children.
While under my guardianship, that Isabelle managed to sneak off and marry a local named John Morris. Like Sarah Rector, Isabelle was constantly receiving attention for marriage and access to her wealth. Before the age of 30, she was married no less than 4 times. I remained Isabelle's guardian for a while, for 8 years, until I was replaced in 1916 after being caught conducting myself improperly, including giving illegal loans from Isabelle's money to several individuals, and it was all true. I didn't find nothing wrong giving a little bit here and there to those close to me, including my son, Willis Wycliffe Nelson. After me, control of Lewis's estate is given to another white man, Mr. John Morton Hobbs, who wasn't much better than me. Before he even had control of her estate as guardian, he was already attempting to make deals with no legal right. He attempted to extend the original deal without my or Isabelle's permission. He is only in control of her finances for 2 years. And you guessed it, Hobbs was accused of improperly managing Lewis's estate, just like me.
As I got older, I grew tired of all this mess with these guardians. I knew according to the law, I was an adult on my 18th birthday. If I was ever going to have a chance to get control of my life, now was the time. If I could dodge them as I turned 18, I could find a judge somewhere to declare me independent so I could finally get control of my money. I heard NAACP took care of Sarah Rector, made sure she got out of Oklahoma, even gave her some schooling at Tuskegee. Ain't nobody been looking out for me, not even my husband John. I had folks hounding me about taking the stress of managing my land and money off my hands. I sure didn't want Wiley in control and was willing to go with just about anybody else if it would eventually leave me controlling my own money. So I took off around my birthday. and made it out of Oklahoma before they even called wind I was gone. They had reports of me all over. Some folks saying I went to Tulsa and they was holding me in a jail cell there. That wasn't true, but I didn't mind them lying. I was fighting for my right to my money, my freedom, and the right to be seen as a sane adult, even if I have to run away to do it. Truth is, I made it all the way to Joplin, Missouri before being caught and brought back there. Back in Oklahoma, I headed to court to stand before a judge that I knew wasn't going to give me a fair chance. Instead of freedom, the judge declared me incompetent, in control of my money, and each day remained under the sole authority of a guardian for another 5 years.
Now, Hobbs removed, her estate was placed in control of Thomas J. Wiley, who successfully sued Hobbs for lost monies when it was discovered the deal negotiated on Isabelle's behalf was actually the worst of two deals offered, and Hobbs received a kickback. Lewis would make efforts to gain control of her finances from Wiley, but in 5 years in extended guardianship, all of her efforts were in vain.
And I didn't like that time Wiley one bit. He was rude and demeaning, often insulting me and making me beg for my own money. I couldn't even marry as I saw fit. I divorced that no-good John Morris. Can you believe he tried to get me to pay for the divorce? A few months later, I attempted to marry my next husband, Willie Goff. I was 19, young but still grown. Yet Wiley stormed in the county clerk room and stopped me from getting married right then and there. Or so he thought. To get around him, me and Willie fled and got married in Oklahoma and Arkansas just to make sure. Showed him. In 1923, after the 5-year guardianship expired, I once again tried to gain my independence from Thomas. By then, I still had somewhere between $50,000 to $100,000 and whatever I was owed due to illegal deals I didn't know about. But again, the judge ruled against me. And Wiley, he was still suing oil companies just so he could charge attorney fees for my estate. He was still doing this up to 1925. By then, I was married to my third husband, Walter Nath. Can you imagine that? Had 3 husbands, yet I was still depending on allowance from Tom Wiley. Walter and I were getting by in high school, but not without our problems. Still dealing with lawsuits and foreclosures and property sales, most of it without me knowing half the details. In 1930, I applied for a marriage license for the 4th time, this time to William Willie Bruner. It didn't last long.
And after that, at 30 years old, Isabelle Lewis largely disappears from public record. While Sarah Rector was able to move to Kansas City after receiving an education at Tuskegee, Sarah Rector's estate was monitored by her mother, and when they had to appoint a white guardian, it was one that the family agreed to. While Rector only had one guardian over the life of her estate, Isabelle had 4, with others trying to take control.
And I fought them all for as long as I could, and as hard as I could. I knew I had a right to control my own finances, to marry and divorce who I pleased, and to fight what I felt was an unjust system of guardianship in Jim Crow, Oklahoma. So I fought, and it cost me a fortune.